The joke heard across the stars. It all started because I was bored. Not just I've scrolled through every social feed twice bored. No, this was the kind of existential boredom that creeps in after a year of working from home, eating microwaved meals, and having more meaningful conversations with my houseplant than with any human being. So I did what any sane, slightly sleep-deprived tech support guy with too much time and too little attention span would do. I logged into a sketchy online message board I'd stumbled across through a chain of Reddit rabbit holes and caffeine-fueled poor decisions. The board was called Galnet Echo. No idea what that meant. It looked like a forum for LA arpists, sci-fi nerds, and the occasional conspiracy theorist. I figured it was a niche role-playing community with impressive world-building. People posted stuff like the Scourge of Velkuth approaches or Treaty of the Sanguine Court violated by the House of Thorns. All very dramatic, very nerdy. Right up my alley. So, naturally, I decided to contribute something equally ridiculous. Screw it. I need a wife. Vampire Warbride preferred. Must enjoy blood, chaos, and binge-watching bad sci-fi. I hit post, laughed to myself, and promptly forgot about it. That was Tuesday night. By Wednesday morning, my world was on fire. Literally. The fire alarm went off at 3:12 a.m. My apartment filled with red smoke and freezing air, and the room suddenly smelled like ozone and roses. I stumbled out of bed in my boxers, half-blind and ready to fight an overcooked toaster. That's when I saw it. A swirling, violet-black vortex spinning right in the middle of my living room. A shape stepped through. 7 feet tall, maybe more, armor blacker than night, covered in jagged silver lines. A tattered crimson cape flowed behind her like storm clouds. Her eyes burned, actually burned, with red fire. Her skin was pale enough to glow. She looked like every heavy metal album cover I'd ever seen, come to life. And then she spoke. Human Jacob Carter of the Earth Domain. Her voice was deep and musical, like a cello soaked in blood and prophecy. I have heard your summons. I accept your proposal. The blood oath is sealed. I am Varashara, daughter of the Night Maw, chosen blade of the Obsidian Pact. Your Warbride. I blinked. Then again, my brain tried to reset itself, like an old computer freezing during an update. What? She tilted her head. Was your offer not sincere? I mean, it was a joke. I posted it on a role-playing forum. Varashara's eyes narrowed. That was no forum. That was the writ of convergence, where warriors and sovereigns across the 9 realms issue and accept blood-bound contracts. Your message was clear. You sought a wife. A warbride. I answered. I thought it was a game. And I thought you were a man of honor, she said coldly. My mouth flapped uselessly. I mean, look, I'm flattered. Really, you seem great. Super intense, but great. But I'm not exactly ready to get married to a stranger from a black hole. Varashara stepped closer. Her boots didn't clomp or stomp. They whispered, like shadows moving. Refusing now would be a grievous insult, she said calmly. It would be seen as betrayal by the Obsidian Pact. My house would lose face. War would be inevitable. My knees buckled. Wait, like actual war. Yes, planet scale. Perhaps Interstellar. Earth would fall within a month. I stared at her, then at the faintly glowing portal behind her. I just wanted someone to watch Firefly with, I muttered. She looked at the television, still paused mid-episode. I enjoy Terran media, especially tales of doomed rebellion. Well, hey, that's a start. She walked to the couch, inspecting it like it was a tactical asset. Then she sat, gracefully, somehow managing to radiate menace while reclining between 2 cat-shaped throw pillows. I will remain for 7 cycles, she said. We shall court, as per ritual custom. At the end, if you prove unworthy, I shall return home alone. If you are worthy, she turned her gaze to me, eyes glowing. You shall become my bonded consort. I sat down slowly on the opposite end of the couch. I still wasn't wearing pants. That suddenly felt very important. Okay, I said carefully. 7 days. We get to know each other. No wars. No biting. No sudden interstellar diplomacy collapses. For now, she agreed. We sat in silence for a few moments. Then I remembered my manners. Do you want a drink or something? I've got coffee. Tea. I do not consume liquids brewed by cowards, she said. Okay, so, tea it is. I stood up and headed to the kitchen. My hands were shaking as I poured boiling water into a mug, mostly to keep myself from having a full-on panic attack. I was just a guy with a weird sense of humor and bad taste in television. Now I apparently had a 7-day countdown to prove I was worthy of marrying an intergalactic vampire death goddess. As I handed her the mug, I tried to smile. So, Varashara, welcome to Earth. I guess we're dating now. She nodded once, sipped the tea, and said with unexpected approval, this Earl Grey is acceptable. Perhaps you are not entirely unworthy. That was the nicest thing anyone had said to me all year. Meet the bride, fear the fangs. I woke up the next morning thinking it had all been a dream. The glowing portal, the armor, the declaration of blood oath marriage by a towering vampire warrior. All of it must have been a stress-induced hallucination from one too many late-night burritos and YouTube spirals. Then I walked into the living room. Varashara was sitting on the couch, still in full battle armor, reading a takeout menu. I do not understand these symbols, she said without looking up. Explain to me what pineapple on pizza is, and why it is a subject of war among your kind. I stared at her. She hadn't moved. Same obsidian armor, same glowing red eyes, same regal posture like she belonged on a throne made of bones and vengeance. It hadn't been a dream. I was still engaged to a vampire warbride from another star system. That's a complicated topic, I said. It's political, like your blood clans, only cheesy. She nodded solemnly. Understood. I shall sample both factions and decide which deserves my allegiance. You're seriously staying here for a week? I asked, cautiously edging toward the kitchen for coffee and answers. You agreed to the courtship protocol. To retract now would start a war. Yeah, I got that part, I muttered. I poured myself a cup of coffee with trembling hands. I needed caffeine and clarity in equal measure. Varashara finally set the menu down and turned toward me. I have reviewed the Oathbound Compact of Consort Initiation, she said. As per galactic tradition, I am to remain in your domain for 7 cycles. We are to explore mutual interests, determine compatibility, and endure 3 trials. One of intellect, one of blood, and one of loyalty. My mug froze halfway to my lips. Wait, trials? She raised one elegant eyebrow. You didn't read the terms. I thought I was posting a meme on a node forum, not proposing intergalactic marriage. Her crimson eyes narrowed. Then consider this your lesson in responsibility. I sat down slowly. Okay, let's start over. You Varashara, daughter of the Nightmare. Where exactly are you from? She looked out the window as if Earth's skyline disappointed her. Nixvoria, a high world within the Thirsted Belt. Our kind, what you would call vampires, rule from the obsidian spires. We are a warrior noble caste, born of blood and war. We exist to conquer and endure. I sipped my coffee. And how did you end up on a human message board? She tilted her head. Your digital net space is primitive, but the writ of convergence appears in all places where intent echoes strongly. The moment you made your request. Joke, I corrected. Invitation, she said firmly. The writ interpreted it as a binding request. A call across the veil. I answered. I alone. Something in her tone made me pause. You came without your people's approval. Varashara didn't answer at first. I chose. That is all that matters. Right. So not just a warbride, possibly a rogue one. Wonderful. Well, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt, we've got 7 days. Let's make the most of it. What do you want to do? She stood, towering over me. I wish to observe Earth's customs. Your rituals. Your strengths. I must know what kind of species I am aligning with. No pressure, I muttered. Later that day, we went on a walk. Technically, I went on a walk. She glided beside me like an armored ghost. The neighborhood watched with a mixture of curiosity and panic. One kid asked if she was filming a Marvel movie. Varashara just growled softly. Humans are smaller than I imagined, she said. Most of us aren't 8 feet tall and not wearing spike gauntlets. Yeah. And fragile. I can smell fear on everyone. Yeah, that's probably you. You have a presence. She looked pleased. Good. We got coffee from a local cafe. I ordered a cold brew. She ordered hers black, blood black. When I asked what she thought, she tilted her head and said, "It's bitter and acidic." I approve. We stopped at a bookstore where she was fascinated by vampire fiction. She flipped through Dracula, scoffing. Your species believes we are afraid of garlic and cannot cross thresholds. Well, to be fair, some of us are afraid of commitment too. She smiled for the first time, barely, but it was there. That night, back at my apartment, I was reheating leftover noodles while Verashara meditated on the balcony, bathed in moonlight like she was summoning a demon, or maybe calming one. She eventually stepped inside. I sense others have noticed my arrival. Neighbors? No, she said grimly. Trackers. From rival houses. You mean there are more vampire aliens on Earth? They followed my trail. Some would prefer you dead to avoid the blood-pact alliance between our worlds. My appetite vanished. Wow, that escalated. I can handle them, she said. But they may attack you first. You are vulnerable. Thanks, I muttered. Great for my ego. She looked at me, her voice quieter. You are untrained, but not without courage. Today, you did not flee. Well, you didn't bite anyone or start a war, so I call that a win. I do not bite without consent, she said, almost smugly. Another vampire myth debunked. I blinked. Wait, was that a joke? She didn't answer, just turned away, cloak billowing. Midnight. I couldn't sleep. Verashara sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, humming softly in a language that sounded older than time. I watched her, heart pounding for reasons I didn't understand. Some part of me, deep down, realized the joke was over. This wasn't cosplay. This wasn't fiction. She was real. And somehow, for reasons I didn't quite grasp, I was important to her. I finally spoke. Hey, if I do mess this up, what happens to you? She opened one eye. I returned to Nixvoria. Alone. Disgraced. Right. No pressure. Then. No, she said softly. There is great pressure. And for the first time, I realized this courtship wasn't just a trial for me. It was for her, too. Blood, banter, and bacon. By day 3, I had reached a weird level of acceptance. It was the kind of mindset you slip into when your life has derailed so spectacularly that normal rules no longer apply. You stop questioning why there's a vampire Warbride in your living room. You just ask if she wants her eggs scrambled or sunny side up. Scrambled, Verashara said without hesitation. With extra pepper. And bacon. The crispy kind. She had developed a strong, possibly spiritual connection with bacon. After her first taste yesterday, she declared it the most noble of Earth's offerings and swore a personal oath to try every variety. I didn't have the heart to tell her it came from pigs. Or maybe I did. She only nodded. A worthy beast, then. Today, we were taking a break from war declarations, ancient blood trials, and vampire politics. She had agreed to spend the day learning Earth customs, which for me meant dragging her through the most sacred rituals of my culture. Breakfast, bickering, and bad TV. The morning ritual. We ate in silence at first. Well, I did. She devoured her bacon like it was a battlefield trophy. This preparation is pleasing, she said, licking a crumb from her finger with disturbing precision. Grease, salt, char, excellent balance. Your planet understands primal flavor. You'd love barbecue, I said. We have entire holidays built around grilling meat and arguing with relatives. Feasting in combat. Glorious. She looked at my toaster. Is that a weapon? It's a toaster. Ah. The conversation paused as she stabbed a piece of egg with her fork and held it up to the light, as if decoding its soul. You're really committing to this courtship thing, I said. I must. The pact is binding. Besides, she hesitated for the briefest moment. You intrigue me. That was the first time she'd said anything close to a compliment. I sipped my orange juice to hide a stupid grin. The Earthling trials. After breakfast, I initiated the first human trial, the streaming gauntlet. I queued up a carefully curated list: Firefly, Pacific Rim, Stranger Things, and a few questionable classics like Starship Troopers. She sat perfectly still as the first episodes played, absorbing every frame with unblinking intensity. Every so often, she'd pause the show to ask things like, "Why does this human not simply bite the enemy? Is this unit considered humorous? Explain this giant robot drift compatibility ritual. Is it sexual?" I nearly choked on my popcorn at that last one. She was strangely into it, though, especially the battle scenes. Her eyes lit up during every explosion and every dramatic betrayal. "This Malcolm Reynolds is a strong leader," she said, "but emotionally wounded. I would duel beside him." "High praise," I replied. "You only said that about 3 other warlords. They were competent." We powered through 5 episodes before she stood and said, "Enough. I must spar." "You want to fight?" "I've sat for too long. My limbs grow restless." I raised an eyebrow. "What? You want to spar with me?" She nodded. "I've never held a sword in my life." "I brought you one," she said. "2, actually." The sparring session. We went to a nearby park, thankfully empty except for a few squirrels that wisely evacuated when Verashara unsheathed 2 curved blades that shimmered with alien metal. She tossed one to me. It was lighter than I expected, but cold to the touch. "I don't think the HOA allows ritual combat on the grass," I muttered. She stepped into a battle stance. "We will not damage the flora. I'll be lucky if I don't damage myself." She came at me slowly, letting me parry and stumble. Her movements were smooth, elegant, precise, like a dance choreographed over centuries. I felt like a toddler learning to walk next to a ballerina with fangs. Still, I managed to hold my own for a few minutes, mostly by running away and flailing wildly. Then she disarmed me with a flick of her wrist and pressed the flat of her blade to my throat. "Well fought," she said. "I did not fight well." "No," she agreed, "but you stood your ground. You did not flee. That matters." I didn't know whether to be proud or deeply concerned. The ambush. We were halfway back to my apartment when we were attacked. It was subtle at first, just a flicker in the shadows, a distortion in the air. Then 3 figures stepped out of a shimmer near the alley across the street. All of them wore blood-red cloaks and carried sickle-shaped weapons glowing with runes. "Verashara of House Nyxvoria," one of them hissed. "Your consort is unworthy. Relinquish the bond or be purged." Verashara didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and drew both her blades. "Try." They lunged. What followed was terrifying and beautiful. Verashara moved like liquid violence, blades flashing in arcs too fast for the eye to follow. She deflected one blow, flipped over another attacker, and landed a vicious kick that sent one assailant crashing into a parked car. I just ducked and tried not to die. One of them broke off from the fight and came straight for me. I grabbed the fallen sword and swung wildly. He deflected it easily, but before he could strike, Verashara intercepted, snarling as she drove her blade through his chest. The last attacker fled. She didn't pursue. She turned to me, eyes still glowing. "You are unharmed." Emotionally scarred for life, but physically, I think I'm good. She sheathed her swords and offered me a hand. "You fought," she said. "Badly, but with courage. The blood acknowledges that." I took her hand. It was cold, strong, and surprisingly gentle. "Thanks," I said, still shaking. "That's the nicest way anyone's ever told me I suck at swordplay." That night, back home, she cleaned her wounds with antiseptic and fire, which I tried not to question. I handed her a bandage. "So, people are actually trying to kill me now." "Not people, vampiric assassins of a rival bloodline." "Oh, well, that's so much better." She leaned against the counter. Her armor was dented. Her lip was bleeding. And still, she looked like a goddess carved out of shadow and steel. "You protected me," she said quietly. "You stood your ground. I didn't want to lose my bacon supplier." She smiled again, this time wider. "You're not what I expected, Jacob Carter. Neither are you, Verashara of House Nyxvoria." We stood there for a moment, the silence more comfortable than I expected. I didn't know if this was love, but it was definitely something. Bloodline politics and bite-sized betrayals. The portal reopened on the fourth morning. Not in my apartment this time, thank God, but in a parking garage downtown, right after I'd bought Vershara a box of assorted donuts. She'd taken to them with a disturbing level of reverence. We were halfway through a Bavarian cream when her eyes flared crimson. "They found us," she said, standing abruptly. "Who? They who? Please tell me you don't mean more assassins." She wasn't looking at me. She was staring toward the east wall of the garage, where the shadows were stretching unnaturally long, and the air shimmered like heat waves. Then it opened, a perfect vertical tear in space. Clean, sharp, deliberate. From it stepped three figures dressed in ceremonial black armor trimmed in gold. Their helmets were crested with spikes and glowing crimson glyphs. Behind them, the portal sealed with a soft hum. Vereshara of House Nixvoria, the tallest one intoned. "The High Matron summons you." She straightened immediately, a strange tension snapping through her spine. "Now, you are bonded to an unvetted species. It is time the court judges this human for themselves." I dropped the donut. "Wait, what?" The envoy turned to me, eyes glowing beneath his helm. "You will accompany us. The court demands presence, not permission." Court of the Obsidian Spires, hours later. I've had nightmares more comfortable than the vampire starship. It was cold. Not the kind of cold that makes you shiver, the kind that makes your bones feel hollow. The walls pulsed faintly with some kind of bioluminescent blood vein design, like the ship itself was alive. We docked at a vast structure orbiting Jupiter. Black towers spiked upward like broken teeth against the gas giant's pale swirl. "This," Vereshara said quietly, "is the Spire Fortress. Heart of my people's dominion. You brought me to Vampire Mortar." She didn't respond. Her jaw was clenched too tight. Inside, everything smelled like metal and candle smoke. Stone hallways stretched endlessly, lit by hovering red orbs that flickered as we passed. Other vampires, tall, armored, elegant, watched us with open curiosity and barely hidden disdain. I felt like a dog being paraded through a dragon's banquet. Vereshara led me into a chamber lined with marble columns, where a semicircle of thrones waited. Each was carved with symbols, bloodlines, I guessed. The one in the center was taller than the others. Sitting there was an older vampire with braided silver hair, black lips, and eyes like dying stars. "The High Matron," Vereshara whispered. "My grandmother." Oh. The judgment. "So this is the one," the High Matron said. Her voice carried without volume. "The human who summoned a blood-bound Warbride through a drunken datanet request." "I wasn't drunk," I muttered. "HM." She gestured, and suddenly I was standing alone in the center of the chamber. All eyes on me. I've never felt more exposed in my life, and I've been to high school gym class. "You will be tested," the matron announced, "by right of blood, intellect, and loyalty. Should you fail, the pact is void. You return to Earth, unclaimed, and House Nixvoria pays the price of Dishna." I glanced at Vereshara. Her face was unreadable. "Okay," I said. "Let's get this over with." Trial 1, Intellect. They gave me a cube. Not a Rubik's Cube, something wise. It changed shape every time I touched it, shifted its colors randomly, and somehow vibrated with judgment. I was told to solve the KYN sphere puzzle, which apparently tested strategic memory and adaptive logic. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had played enough puzzle platformer games in college to recognize patterns. I talked through the logic aloud as I rotated, clicked, and rearranged it, trying to keep my panic from showing. After 10 minutes, the cube clicked, flashed violet, and fell still. There was silence. Then murmurs. One of the judges nodded. "Satisfactory." I exhaled. "Barely." Trial 2, Blood. I hated this one immediately. They brought out a ceremonial blade and a bowl. "You must offer your blood willingly," the matron said, "as a symbol of submission to the pact." I stared at the blade. "I'm supposed to just cut myself." "If the bond is true," Vereshara said softly, You will not weaken. The blood will answer. I hesitated, then took the blade and made a shallow cut across my palm. The blood dripped into the bowl, glowing faintly as it mixed with some dark violet liquid. Then the bowl burst into flame. Gasps echoed across the chamber. The matron narrowed her eyes. His blood resonates. That's good? I asked, clutching my hand. No one answered, but no one stopped me, either. Trial 3, Loyalty. This one was a trap. A robed vampire entered with a data screen, displaying Earth cities. If the bond proceeds, Earth becomes politically significant. Rival houses may target your world. He looked at me coldly. Do you truly claim you would stand between your kind and ours, or betray us to protect them? They wanted me to choose loyalty to her or loyalty to Earth. I asked. Precisely. I looked at Varashara, then at the judges. I don't choose, I said. I stand for both. If that's not loyalty enough, then your test is broken. Silence again. Then the matron smiled, barely, well-spoken. Aftermath. Back in her guest chamber, Varashara sat on a stone bench, hands folded. You passed, she said. All 3. Barely. I think my hand's still bleeding. She stood and crossed the room. For the first time, she looked uncertain. They meant to shame you, make you seem unworthy. But you stood for yourself. For me. For your world. I wasn't going to let you take all the risk alone. She stepped closer. You have proven loyalty. Does that mean I've passed the girlfriend exam? A smile flickered on her face. Sharp, fanged, real. Something like that. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed. Low, deep, formal. To you, Jacob Carter, Earthborn, bonded consort. I blinked. Was that respect? Yes, she said. And gratitude. I didn't know what to say, but I was starting to realize this wasn't a game anymore. Earth is off the menu. Returning to Earth after nearly being psych-evaluated by an entire council of space vampires was awkward, especially when I had to explain it to the clerk at airport security. This isn't a weapon, I told him, gesturing toward the sheathed ceremonial blade strapped to my back. It's, religious. Varashara simply glared at the man until he waved us through without another word. Once we were back in my apartment, I finally let myself breathe. It smelled like bacon, old coffee, and something distinctly not interstellar politics. Home. Varashara stood at the window, arms crossed behind her back. Her armor had been exchanged for something less intimidating. A dark leather coat overlaid tactical gear, somehow still looking like royalty preparing for war. You were impressive at the spires, she said without turning. They will not forget what you did. I won't either, I muttered, rubbing my bandaged hand. She turned to face me. Earth will be watched now. They consider it a potential battleground. Great, I said. Maybe next time I should just swipe right like a normal person. The warning. At 2:13 a.m., my TV turned on by itself. I hadn't touched the remote. Neither had Varashara. On the screen, static. Then words appeared, burned into the distortion, as if being branded into the signal itself. The Warbride must be returned. Earth is not sanctioned territory. This is your only warning. I sat up on the couch, staring in disbelief. Varashara didn't react the way I expected. No panic, no anger. She stood in front of the screen like a statue, eyes glowing with a quiet fury. They're preparing to strike, she said. They want to sever the bond and avoid political fallout by making you vanish. You mean kill me? No. Worse. Erase you. Rip you from the pact as if you never existed. She turned toward me, deadly serious. We must show them Earth is not prey. I swallowed. Do you mean diplomatically? I mean we make them regret breathing your name. The human response. Turns out Earth had not been sitting idly by while the galaxy played vampire chess. Varashara reached out to someone through her Gauntlet's interface. A signal bounced through several encoded relays before connecting us to an underground base I didn't know existed, until it answered with a single word. Confirmed. That night, I was whisked away by black SUVs with unmarked plates and very serious people in sunglasses. We were taken to a bunker beneath a fake warehouse in Nevada. No official names. No windows. Lots of guns. We were met by a woman named Director Valen, who looked like a retired spy and moved like she still killed people before breakfast. "Mr. Carter," she said, offering no smile. "We've been monitoring your situation. You knew about the writ of convergence. Since the 98 flay, we've had protocols in place for interdimensional bonding events, just in case someone got cocky. And you let me go through with it." We didn't expect anyone to actually say yes. Varashara narrowed her eyes. "Your leaders let my bondmate walk alone, unshielded." Valen didn't flinch. "Now we're protecting him. Starting now." The first strike. 2 nights later, the sky over Arizona lit up. A ship, sleek, organic, crescent-shaped, entered low orbit and fired what looked like a slow-moving bolt of plasma. It struck the desert and vaporized several acres. No casualties, but the message was clear. They knew where I was. The counterstrike came 6 minutes later. From a hidden launch pad, Earth fired a barrage of kinetic kill SATs, projectiles with no explosives, just tungsten rods dropped from orbit. No tech, just gravity and fury. One pierced the alien ship's hull. The rest turned it into orbital confetti. Varashara watched the footage, arms crossed, eyes glinting. "You are resourceful," she said softly. I didn't feel proud. I felt different. A little colder, a little sharper. "Welcome to Earth," I replied. Galactic ripples. The destruction of a blood-aligned vessel by a primitive world sent shockwave through the vampire aristocracy. Varashara received over a dozen encrypted messages within hours, some praising her bond, others warning her that she had started something that couldn't be stopped. "We have entered a new phase," she said. "The houses are choosing sides. The old laws are being tested. What happens if Earth becomes a battleground? Then we defend it. Together." I stared at her for a long moment. "You mean that?" She met my gaze. "Do you?" I didn't answer immediately, but I stepped forward and took her hand, gently, despite the claws and cold skin. "I didn't mean to start this, but I'm not running." She blinked, once, slowly. "Then we are no longer courting," she said. "We are preparing for war." The blood bond deepens. That night, Varashara stood beside me on the roof of my apartment building, beneath stars I now knew were full of watching eyes. She offered me a dagger. "Should the war escalate, you may not survive as you are. The bond can be deepened." "You mean turning me into one of you?" "No," she said. "Not fully. A hybrid. Half human, half L-blood. Stronger, resistant, but not without cost." "What cost?" She didn't answer, just looked at me like she already knew I'd say yes. "I'll let you know," I said, "if things get worse." She nodded, and for the first time, placed her hand over my chest. "Then stay close to me, Jacob, for your world may soon burn brighter than mine ever did." The soul-chaining war. War doesn't begin with guns. It begins with silence. Unanswered signals, closed portals, sudden absences on long-range scans. Then whispers. Then ultimatums. Then fire. It started with the eclipse over Antarctica, an unnatural one, stretching too far and too long. Satellite feeds went dark. A vampire dreadnought, 10 miles wide, materialized in low orbit. House Kareth, rivals to Nyxvoria. They made no demands. They opened fire. Kinetic rods punched through abandoned research stations like soda cans. Lightning crackled from the clouds as gravitational weapons split the sky. Earth's defenses scrambled to respond, but they hadn't faced an organized fleet like this. Not yet. And at the center of it, me. Preparations. We had less than 48 hours to prepare. Varashara called it the reckoning. I called it Tuesday. She stood with me in the war room of Earth's hidden orbital command center, surrounded by military brass, diplomats, and a few very nervous scientists. House Kareth intends to sever the pact, she explained. Not through assassination, through spectacle. They believe if Earth folds quickly, no other house will dare challenge their dominance. And if we don't, asked General Harlan, then the vampires will fracture. House alliances will splinter. The old rules will die, and something new will take its place. She turned to me. They fear what we could become together. The soul chaining. I had a choice. Stay human and likely die, or bond deeper. The soul chaining was an ancient rite among vampire nobility, used only in times of crisis. It connected two lives, not just emotionally or symbolically, but metaphysically. Shared instincts, shared thoughts, shared fates. It was permanent. It will change you, Varashara warned. Not fully, but enough. You will feel me in your mind. And I, you. I sat in silence for a long time. The room was quiet. Just us. Will I still be me? I asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, but you'll never be alone again. I nodded once. Do it. She drew a dagger from her belt, obsidian blade, etched with runes. She cut her palm, then mine. We clasped hands. Pain surged through me. Cold, ancient, electric. My heart stuttered. My thoughts twisted, not in agony, but in awareness. I saw her memories flash before me. Battlefields soaked in moonlight, the throne room of Nyxvoria, her first kill, her mother's last words. And she saw mine. My father's workshop. My first kiss. That dumb Halloween costume. The night I posted that joke online. She smiled, eyes soft. I understand you now. And I, somehow, understood her too. The bond snapped into place like a lock finding its key. The battle over Mars. The main fight began above Mars. We didn't expect Kareth to move so soon. They launched a surprise fleet from the Phobos side, flanking our position. Earth's orbital defense grid engaged immediately. But we were outnumbered. Their ships were larger, meaner, more advanced. Varashara and I boarded the Emberfang, her personal cruiser. Linked as we were, I could feel her strategies as if they were instincts. I wasn't just guessing. I knew when to issue orders, when to pivot. It was like flying with a second brain. Our ship carved through their flank using solar flares and stealth thrusters. We disabled 3 cruisers in 20 minutes. But it wasn't enough. Kareth unleashed a flagship, the Hollow Star, a cathedral-sized weapon platform built for sieges. It locked onto Earth's orbital defense hub. I felt Varashara's spike of panic. This is it, she said. We must end this now. The final duel. We boarded the Hollow Star. It was a suicide run. But the chain between us gave us something more than luck. It gave us unity. We fought through corridors of armored elite, our minds one step ahead of theirs. I moved, she covered. She struck, I flanked. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. In the heart of the ship waited Lord Varen, head of House Kareth. 9 feet tall, crimson armor, a sword made of compressed stellar core. Little Oathborn, he sneered. You think blood can make you noble? I don't want to be noble, I said. Just alive. He lunged. Varashara caught the first blow. I caught the second. We fought together. 2 souls, 1 rhythm. It was the most terrifying, beautiful dance I'd ever known. And finally, with a feint and a flash of coordinated rage, we brought him down. The flagship fell silent. Aftermath. The battle ended with House Kareth withdrawing what was left of them. Their flagship was self-destructed. But by then, Earth had proved itself. We were no longer just the source of an accidental blood oath. We were combatants, partners, equals. Other houses took notice. Some sent envoys. Others sent offers. A few sent warnings. But none attacked. Back on Earth, Varashara stood with me on the same rooftop where she'd first mentioned the soul chaining. She wore simple black. No armor. No weapons. Just peace. You changed, I said. So did you. We stared up at the stars. For once, they didn't feel so far away. Do you regret it? I asked, bonding with me. She took my hand. I have never been more certain of anything. I laughed, even though I burned the pancakes this morning. That was a grave dishonor, she said, but forgivable. I leaned against her shoulder. She didn't flinch. We stood in silence for a while. And for the first time since this whole thing began, I didn't feel like the world was ending. I felt like it was just beginning. Death, rebirth, and blood-kissed vows. Some stories end with a wedding. Ours didn't. Ours began with war, ran through politics, blood, and interstellar threats, and finally circled back to something much older than vows. Something sacred, something primal. And as I stood in the heart of Nyxvoria, the capital of the vampire dominion, in ceremonial black robes stitched with silver thread and phoenix feathers, I realized something. This wasn't just about me anymore. It never was. The return to Nyxvoria. Nyxvoria wasn't built for humans. The air was thin, the light perpetually dust-colored, and the buildings seemed to stretch and bend in ways that defied geometry. Walking its streets felt like navigating a dream painted by someone who had only read descriptions of Earth from Gothic novels and nightmares. And yet, it had become familiar. Varashara walked beside me, her hand in mine. Since our soul-chaining during the war, we were bonded in ways no human or vampire could fully understand. Thoughts bled into one another sometimes. Emotions surfaced when the other wasn't even in the room. "I can feel your nerves," she said softly. I tried to laugh. "I'm just worried I'll trip during the vow ceremony and land on my face." "You won't. But if you do, I'll bite anyone who laughs." "That's reassuring." She smiled. "Sharp. Real." The vow of eternal accord, the wedding, if you could call it that, wasn't legal in any Earth country. It wasn't recognized by any human court. But among the vampire elite, the vow of eternal accord was older than most species. The temple stood like a blade against the horizon. Inside, hundreds of ancient bloodlords, matriarchs, envoys, and rival warbrides filled the cathedral-like space. They watched me with a mix of fascination and barely concealed disgust. A human, in their sacred hall. But no one challenged me. Not after what we'd done during the war. At the altar, Varashara knelt before me. She wore ceremonial war armor, midnight black, lined with glowing red veins pulsing like living lava. The officiant stepped forward. His face was hidden beneath layers of bone and obsidian. His voice echoed from nowhere. "Two souls bound in chaos. Blood joined through will. Let this be more than pact. Let it be truth." He extended two small silver daggers. Varashara sliced her palm first. Then I followed. This time, when our hands clasped, it wasn't about defense. It wasn't about power or politics. It was about us. "Do you claim this union beyond blood, beyond war, beyond time?" "I do," Varashara said. "I do," I echoed, voice steady. The temple trembled. Light flickered. A ripple passed through the floor like a living pulse. Our bond deepened, not as soldiers, not as survivors, but as something new. Husband and wife. After the ceremony, there was no dancing, no cake, no awkward relatives. There was a duel, though, because of course there was. A rival warbride named Elizan stepped forward, her crimson blade already drawn. Her house had opposed our union since the beginning. "This pairing weakens us," she said, addressing the audience. "A mortal cannot carry the weight of an empire." I sighed. "Can we not do this today?" Varashara drew her sword without a word and stepped between us. But I stopped her. "No, let me." There was a murmur through the crowd. I stepped into the dueling ring, unarmed at first. I could feel Varashara's worry burning through the bond. "I know," I whispered to her, "but I've earned this." A blade was tossed to me, ceremonial, but sharp enough. Elizan lunged. She was faster, stronger, trained for centuries. But I wasn't fighting to win. I was fighting to prove I belonged. I dodged, ducked, countered, not beautifully, but boldly. I scored a hit on her shoulder, and when she swept my leg and sent me sprawling, I used the momentum to flip and slash across her thigh. We circled, breathing heavy, blood dripping, and then I lowered my weapon. "I could keep fighting," I said, "but I don't need to." Elizan paused. "I didn't win. But neither did you. So unless you want to make this a war, and I promise, we know how to end those now, you'll let this go." For a long moment, she stared at me. Then she sheathed her sword, turned, and walked away. A quiet moment. Later that night, Varashara and I sat alone on a balcony overlooking Nyxvoria's lower spires. A chill wind passed between us, though neither of us minded it. You didn't have to fight her, she said, tracing a clawed finger over my bruised knuckles. I know. But you did. I shrugged. I guess. I wanted them to see I wasn't just the human you married. I'm the one you chose. And I chose you. She leaned in and kissed me, gently, yet charged with every battle, every vow, every breath we'd survive together. I never wanted a prince, she said. I wanted someone who would bleed beside me and still stand. I'm not planning on going anywhere. Epilogue, the beginning. A week later, Earth received an official emissary from the Vampire Coalition. A truce. A mutual recognition pact. Earth was no longer off-limits. Nor was it prey. It was equal, dangerous, clever, and, most of all, bonded to something ancient and powerful. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage. And me? I had a vampire warbride, a bonded soul, and a pretty good recipe for garlic-free lasagna. It wasn't the life I asked for. It was better.